After just 10 games in charge, Watford have sacked manager Rob Edwards and replaced him with Slaven Bilic. Here is my reaction. Well, what a perfect storm this is. Watford, Pozzos, a young rookie manager and an international break. Out goes 39-year-old Rob Edwards. In comes Slaven Bilic to replace him, with the Hornets 10th in the Championship and 1 point off the playoffs. The press got hold of this an hour or two ago, but now it is all confirmed with a couple of brutal tweets just 5 minutes apart. Now, this is normally the point I ask you for your comments, but for the sake of my sanity, before I do, please let me just say this. Yes, we have all seen this movie before. Yes, we know Watford go through managers like I go through tea-towels. We're at the point now where it would be more surprising if the Pozzos didn't change manager during the season. So I'm not entirely sure how useful that line of debate is anymore. But as always, free speech ahoy, and get your thoughts in via the comments. The outgoing Edwards took Forest Green up from League 2 to League 1 last season, and this looked like a bit of a welcome departure for Watford, a young manager from the lower divisions, with the noises coming out of the club that a new culture was going to be established as the Hornets look to bounce back from a second relegation in 3 seasons from the Premier League. Watford came down with a number of the squad that were promoted last time around, and despite selling attacking assets, Chucho Hernandez and Manuel Dennis, they did retain Ismail Assar and João Pedro, who would appear to fall in that too good for the Championship category. Some decent loans in, especially Keenan Davis, who starred during promotion with Nottingham Forest last season, and add that to the fact they're a relegated team and they've got that lovely rocket fuel we call parachute payments. This looks like a pretty cushy, viable job. So just the 10 games for Watford in the Championship under Rob Edwards, and they haven't massively convinced, have they? I've actually seen 4 of these games in the flesh out vlogging. You can check the playlist up there to see what I felt at the time. There have been 3 wins, all at home, but all against pretty high-level Championship opposition in leaders Sheffield United, another parachute team in Burnley, and a Borough team who, frankly, should be much higher up the table than they are. All these wins, though, were pretty tight, and there was always this sense of star power rather than a nicely functioning team getting the job done. Away from home, though, it's not been good at all. No away wins and only 3 goals. 3 of the opponents they've faced away from home are currently in the bottom half. None of their away opponents are currently in the top 6. It hasn't been great on the pitch. Certainly an underperformance in terms of what we'd expect. But of course, I get it. There's always the flip side. We're only 10 games in. Given time, would it have got better? In terms of Rob Edwards himself, one can hope for his sake he's young enough to brush this off and continue what was a very promising start to his managerial career. Perhaps in future job interviews he can put this down to being just the way it is at Watford. I'm not entirely sure how amicable the departure was from Forest Green in the summer, but the new boss there, Iain, is not doing so well, struggling down in the bottom 3, and I'm sure we can all put 2 and 2 together, and stranger things have happened if Dale Vince and Rob Edwards can make friends anymore. Hey, I'm just speculating here. On the one hand, it was great to see a young lower division manager get a parachute team, but this really does feel like the worst case scenario for that kind of direction of travel, with probably now both sides of the equation in the high-powered Championship clubs and the young League 1 and 2 bosses a little bit more reticent to try this same thing out in the future. We'll get on to Slaven Bilic very, very quickly, but first I need to tell you that you can download the OneFootball app for free via the link in the description. Don't go via the App Store. A great place to follow this story, every other football story, as well as checking up on tables and stats so you can know exactly what Slaven Bilic is getting himself into. You can set your preferences to follow your favourite teams and your favourite leagues, and for connoisseurs of the Italian game, you can check out Serie A highlights within the app, and most impressively, you can stream one selected Saturday night Serie A match each weekend. That's the OneFootball app. Download via that link down there in the description. Right, back to it. And Slaven Bilic does feel like a far more on-brand appointment for the Potsos and far more on-brand Watford manager. Is it a bit of a pointed way, the ownership there at Watford, of saying, well, we tried this new way and now we're going back to what we know? Bilic has been managing in China. He's probably best known for his spells with the Croatia international team, West Ham in the Premier League. But the most prevalent example of his work would be the 2019-20 season with West Brom, who he got promoted out of the Championship. They were in year 2 of their parachute payments. They got rid of Darren Moore, and Bilic was basically tasked, go in there, get them promoted. That's exactly what he did. They flew out of the blocks that season. Admittedly, they limped over the line in the behind closed doors interrupted COVID season, but they had an amazing start. He got them moving straight away. No real goal-scoring striker. And he got a real tune out of flair players like Grady Diangana and especially Matheus Pereira. Well, my reaction for what it's worth on Bilic, he's probably a very good fit for Watford and perhaps has the CV experience, gravitas that Rob Edwards didn't in terms of dealing with the potentially chaotic nature of things down at Vicarage Road, let's just say. If he can get the response he did at West Brom and do with Sarr what he did with Pereira, then Watford and their fans will be laughing. All of this with the obvious caveat that if he looks like he's not going to get the playoffs around January time, well, I think you'll know where I'm going with that. In terms of Rob Edwards, look, I know this isn't how football operates, but the obvious human and emotionally led reaction is to feel very sorry for him. There will be a lot of I told you so's from people, but I really don't blame him for thinking he would be the one to break the mould, and hopefully he'll get back in and this experience doesn't damage his potential management in the future. Set aside the human sympathetic reaction, ignore the boring conversations about the Potsos, and whilst acknowledging this might be a drastic decision, it might be a sad decision, ask yourself, will this be a good decision? I hate to say it, but I do think given the situation and pressures there, that are still there, they haven't been cast aside like we thought they might have been in the summer, maybe Bilic is a better fit here than Edwards at Watford, and maybe there might be a better fit for Edwards club-wise in the future. Get your thoughts in then via the comments, fill that debate, get things moving. How do you see Bilic doing at Watford? Where will Rob Edwards pop up next? And if you absolutely have to, we can have the same debate about Watford changing manager. Lots and lots for the 500th time. Look, you do you. Go on, whatever. In the meantime, you can check out short clips from this channel on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, or stay right here for some related content. You can click here to see my detailed take on Slaven Bilic's promotion with West Brom in 2020, or click here to see my breaking news playlist, which this will go on, which is full of managerial merry-go-rounding right about now.